When I started this channel, one of the first successful videos was a review about the Head Type 5 and later the Head Type 5 Mark II. You can re-watch these videos up here. Since then, many people were asking me about the right speaker for music production and what I think of certain speakers and so on and so forth. And a few months ago, people were realizing that I have in fact changed my setup. I went from the Head Type 5's Mark II to the Genelec 8331. And that started a debate whether or not I'm now a Genelec chill or I lied to you or anything like that. And in this video I want to give an honest review about the Genelecs and why I think you should consider them, and also what I think about speakers in general again. If you don't want to listen to my lengthy monologue about speakers, I give you the short answer. In a perfect scenario, I would have both the Type 5 and the Genelec 8331 next to each other. But since I am in a room where I have just a limited amount of space, I had to decide between the two, and I went for the Genelec for a specific set of reasons. That doesn't mean that the Type 5 is a bad monitor. Quite the contrary is true. I really enjoy that, and I went in my main studio for the Type 30 Mark II, which is the bigger brother of the Type 5. This is a three-way speaker, and I will probably do a review about the Type 30 in the future. If you are watching my initial review of the Head Type 5, again up here, you will realize that I made a list of parameters under which I would choose my speaker. The first is the room, because we are not working in a free field environment, which these monitors are usually measured in. We are working in a diffused field, which means we're working in a room where there are echoes and absorptions and diffusions going on. So the speaker has to work in a room that will work against the speaker or the sound. Even though many people were having different opinions about speakers, this could also be the case because they were having them in untreated rooms or in rooms with certain acoustic problems. So don't believe everything that you read in the internet about speakers. The second parameter for me was the music that you are producing. For example, if you are making music with heavy bass and electronic music, a small speaker with not enough low end will probably not be your first choice. I know producers that will rule out certain speakers just because they don't fit their type of music. And that leads me to my third point, and that is preferences and personal taste. You will like certain speakers better than others just because they will enhance frequencies that you like or that you dislike, so you won't like that speaker. That is very important. People have different ears with different frequency responses, and we also have different tastes. For example, I don't like tracks with very loud hi-hats. I simply don't like sounds that are very hissy and that are destroying for me the groove. So I tend to mix that way, and a monitor that has a certain kind of neutrality or resolution in the high end will lead for me to a certain mixing result that I find really pleasing. Just because something is linear, so to say, it doesn't mean that you like that sound in the mixing sense, right? And these three rules, room, music you are making, and your personal preferences, are still valid. Now, I would add a fourth point when considering a certain speaker, and that is the actual design of the speaker. Because normally what we're talking about is a two-way design, meaning we have a woofer and we have a tweeter. And the tweeter takes care of the highs and the upper mids, and the woofer, generally speaking, will take care of the low end and the low mids, so to say. And this is a classic design. You will find a lot of speakers that have that. And this will come with certain pitfalls and certain things that people have to work around. Because, for example, if you have a tweeter and a woofer, you have to work with a certain crossover frequency between those two. And this will cause phase problems. And that's, for example, why Head has a linearizer. What this linearizer is doing is simply aligning the phase between the tweeter and the woofer. So that's one of the reasons why the design of a speaker will have certain implications, let's say. And the Genelec speaker that you see on the back, the 8331, is a coaxial speaker. So you don't have those traditional traits of a two-way speaker, meaning a woofer and a tweeter, but you actually have one element that is both the tweeter and the woofer. You know, I break it down very easily right now, because the Genelec still has some low-end woofers in the design, if you would open that up. But generally speaking, that will give you a different sound, because phase is not an issue as if with the two-way speaker, and also the way that the transients response is different, and modulation in between those two elements. What I realized is that just because I was looking at a speaker that had a similar frequency response, let's say a two-way speaker that has a very natural and flat frequency response, and I compare that to a coaxial speaker with the same frequency response, or more or less same frequency response, that doesn't mean that these two speakers sound the same. In fact, what I realized is that the coaxial designs oftentimes is way better in terms of like spatial information, so panning and all those decision-making processes that are in the mix, right? And transient response. Whereas on a two-way speaker, I get a more pleasing sound to my ear that gives me a more, let's say, natural response when it comes to voices or stuff like that. So what I'm saying is, listen to what you have in your room. Take the speaker and put it into your room. Select a track that you know inside out, maybe a production that you know, and listen to the speaker and what the speaker is giving you. That's the most important thing for you to take from this video. Speakers do not sound the same, and the reason is different components, different enclosures, different designs will lead to different results. And actually, I was kind of surprised that Genelec takes into consideration a lot of different parameters than just frequency response. They, for example, measure sound dissipation and also phase alignment or trueness of phase, if I say that correctly. And also transient response. You have to factor in a lot of different parameters than just frequency response in order to understand a speaker. Initially, I was against the idea of testing out those Genelecs, because actually I really did not like Genelecs before. I listened to the whole series, like the 10 series and all those monitors, and I never really liked them. I found them to be muddy and not very good for electronic music. Maybe minimal music, but I was always thinking about the listening experience that I had, and I was completely against the idea. But a friend of me told me I should definitely check out the Genelecs. Once I looked into the new coaxial series, I was really kind of surprised and also interested for a plethora of reasons. One, the 8331s are a very compact small speaker. I mean, if you look at them, they're even smaller than my Type 5s. When space is a factor and the room is a factor, having a small speaker that will give you a great sound is very valuable. Another reason was the GLM software and the SAM technology. The Genelecs allow me to compensate for certain frequency. They have a calibration system that will allow you to measure those speakers in your room and then save the setting into the speakers. So the great thing is that even though I haven't fired up my computer, for example, they are still calibrated in this room. So when I go over to my side rack and do my jams, I still have a great sound and I hear everything. The next reason was the sustainability aspects of Genelec. I, for example, use a lot of old vintage gear, as you probably know, and to have a company on my side that gives me a service guarantee of up to 20 years or even more, that is a great aspect. Also, to know that the aluminum enclosure that Genelec is using is made fully out of recycled aluminum is also really cool. These are details and maybe are not for everyone, but for me they were kind of fascinating. Also, I like the look of the Genelecs. Subjective, yes, but they were the first things that made me decide to go for the 8331s. And once I placed them in my room and I did the calibration, I did a lot of testing and listening and listening and listening. So I measured my room. I was kind of surprised by the results, and it is bad, but the GLM software helped me tremendously with this room. I don't have the masking anymore. The low end bump is gone. I don't have this really strange sound. I get a more open sound and a more transparent sound. And I am really happy with that. After my listening session, I was kind of shocked. It was very surprising to have a very tight bass and a very nice spatial information in such a small speaker. Stereo information in those little speakers is amazing. The 8331s give you an amazing stereo field. And not only a stereo field that is very accurate and precise, but also a very, very huge sweet spot. The way that these speakers are, if you look closely, you see that I don't have them at my ear height. Normally you would have the tweeter at ear height in order to have a very precise representation of the upper mids and the highs. But because the way that the coaxial design dissipates the sound in the room, it actually has a very wide vertical and horizontal sweet spot. I can actually go up and down and I don't have the problem of losing information or getting phasing or cancellations. Everything, to a certain degree of course, is still very, very precise. And that's what I like. I love these speakers for the very wide sweet spot, because I know very expensive monitors that have a very narrow sweet spot. Normally you work in this classic triangular fashion and you have to stay in that in order to listen to what is going on. This is not the case with the Genelecs. Also, the way that the resolution in the mids is translated is amazing. For me, these are precise working tools. I wouldn't necessarily listen to those speakers for a long time, because sometimes you hear a lot of errors that were made in certain productions. Or let's not call them errors, but yeah, things that what I call not optimal. So yeah, these are speakers that are very precise, they are very transparent, and they have just an amazing bass, and I really enjoy the way that mixes are translating on these speakers. Yeah, that's it generally. I have to say choosing a monitor is not easy, and the Genelecs give me another way of listening to music, a very precise one, and mind you, it's not a fair comparison between the heads and the Genelecs, just because, I mean, the Genelecs, one Genelec speaker alone costs what two of the Type 5s cost. So obviously there is a difference, and it's good that there is a difference, right? If I would paid double the amount and there was no real benefit, I mean, what the heck. The Genelecs are amazing. I really enjoy them. The GLM software is great. I can mix very well on these bad boys. The way that the setup process is set is very easy. I like that they haven't done as much voodoo with the calibration as many other manufacturers do. GLM software and the whole SAM architecture is very easy to understand, and it's very cool. And Genelec really tries to educate their customers. If you go to the Genelec website, you will get a lot of information regarding acoustic treatment and the way that acoustic rooms are behaving in certain areas. And this is really, really, really cool. I went to a Genelec event and I listened to the bigger ones. And of course, the bigger ones give you more low end, but the most important thing for me was actually that you get more resolution in the mids. So if you are interested in more resolution, more mid resolution, I would go for a bigger speaker, but generally speaking, the 8331 gives you everything you need in order to work. Still, I would choose my Type 5s next to them and would A/B them, but from a general perspective, they both give me two different lenses, so to say, to explore the sound that I'm working on. All right, that was my initial review of the Genelec's 8331s. If you have any questions, please write them down in the comment section below, and I see you in the next video.